भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। अष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। Reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, the most comprehensive knowledge, text number 22. Ananyaha Chintayantah Mam Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Janaha Pariyupasate Ye Jana Pariyupasate Tesham Nitya Abhiyuktanam Tesham Nitya Abhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahami Aham Yogakshemam Vahami Aham Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Pariyupasate Tesham Nitya Abhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahami Aham Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Pariyupasate Tesham Nitya Abhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahami Aham Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Pariyupasate Tesham Nitya Abhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahami Aham
Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Pariyupasate Tesham Nitya Abhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahami Aham Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Pariyupasate Tesham Nitya Abhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahami Aham Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Pariyupasate Tesham Nitya Abhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahami Aham
Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Pariyupasate Tesham Nitya Abhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahami Aham
Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Pariyupasate Tesham Nitya Abhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahami Aham Ananyaha no other Chintayantah concentrating Mam unto me Ye who Janaha persons Pariyupasate properly worshipped
properly worship.
Tesham,
There,
Nitya, always. Abhiyuktana, fixed in devotion. Yogakshemam, requirements. Vahami, carry. Aham, I. Translation purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. But those who worship me with devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. Translation with repetition. But those who worship me with devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. One who is unable to live for a moment without Krishna consciousness cannot but think of Krishna 24 hours. Being engaged in devotional service by hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshipping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, rendering other services, cultivating friendship, and surrendering fully to the Lord. Such activities are all auspicious and full of spiritual potencies. Indeed, they make the devotee perfect in self-realization. Then his only desire is to achieve the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is called yoga. By the mercy of the Lord, such a devotee never comes back to this material condition of life. Shema refers to the merciful protection of the Lord. The Lord helps the devotee to achieve Krishna consciousness by yoga. And when he becomes fully Krishna conscious, the Lord protects him from falling down to a miserable conditioned life. Thus ends the transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Kushaline Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This is verse number 22 of chapter 9, and a very important verse. And Prabhupada has given 2 lectures on this verse, and they're really nice. And this verse is very important because all of us are anxious about our necessities of life. How will I fulfill my necessities of life? Everyone is worrying about that. Everyone is worrying about the struggle for existence. How will I maintain myself? How will I maintain my family? What will happen to me tomorrow? Will I be in a good condition? Do I need more insurance? Do I need some more support system? So how do I really take care of myself today, tomorrow, and in the future? And not only myself, and how do I take care of people around me? So this is a constant problem which a living entity undergoes to maintain the status quo, to maintain a proper life. How can I continue my proper life? And therefore, all the hard struggle to work hard, to study, and then go to college, take big loans, and get a job, repay the loan, get married, get a house, then repay the loan, and then again plan for the next future for the children. And in this way, everyone is worried whether if I don't do certain things, I will not be able to lead a decent life. And therefore, I need to somewhere or other take care and protect myself. So the way we try to get assurance for our protection, for our sustenance, is by depending upon various material means. And then this anxiety continues until the death. How do we, even at the time of death, one is thinking, what is going to happen to me? I'm still losing something, I'm in need of something. So this perpetual anxiety of sustaining oneself, the struggle for existence, is a constant thing. But in this verse, Lord is saying something very special. He's saying, I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. Yoga Kshemam Bhamyaham. So, we are all deficient of so many things. In order to fulfill those deficiencies, we are always hankering for something. How can I get a new iPhone? How can I get some other product which is not available to me? I'm missing something. I need some more things. Then I will become complete. So in this way, everyone is thinking about some more necessities. And as soon as they think some more necessities, immediately one has to do a lot of hard work in the material world to satisfy those necessities. And that's the reason why we see every day people are running in cars from one place to another, and a lot of struggle just to meet those necessities. But imagine if someone comes and says, I will give you all the necessities that you're looking for. So that is something extraordinary. And not only that, someone says that I'm going to give all of your necessities, then one may also worry, okay, you are giving me some necessities, what if I will lose them? Then one is also worried. I need to protect them. Okay, you gave me something, I have something with me, but as soon as I'm a mobile phone, I want it covered to protect it. I don't want to lose it, so I need to get an insurance plan. So in this way, everyone is also trying not only to fulfill the necessities, but also preserve them, to make sure that they're not losing what they're having. But imagine someone says, not only I'm going to give you what you lack, but I'm also going to preserve what you have. If there were a plan, a company, not just insurance is only when you hit a vehicle or when you are not feeling well, they give you something. But what if someone says, even when you're well, I'm going to give you something every day. And I'm going to give you something that you really lack. The company will become very successful. People will be very eager to get some ways and means to find how can I, register into this place so that all my necessities are fulfilled and also they're preserved forever. But unfortunately, in this material world, that is not a possibility. And as conditioned living entities, neither we can assure that we can give someone something what they lack in completeness. And neither we have the ability to preserve something because we ourselves are perishable. So therefore, Lord is making this wonderful statement for his devotees. He's saying, Yoga Kshemu Vahami Aham. And the word Aham is very important because the Lord is saying that I carry what they lack. That means he's saying, not someone else. I am personally going to take care of that. I'm personally going to provide what is missing. And I'm personally going to preserve what they have. So this personal assurance of the Lord is something very special. Now one may question immediately, if the Lord is going to take care of me in this way, why I don't see that? Why are there so many people who are not seeing that? What is the reason why my life is still with so many lacuna? There are so many things which are missing in my life, and whatever money I'm saving, that is also vanishing very quickly. So how do I know that Lord is actually doing this? So it is also important to understand the criteria that the Lord is also mentioning before that. The Lord is saying, Ananya Shintayanto Mam. Ananya, no other. Chintayantaha, concentrating. So basically, they are not, their attention is not diverted to anything else apart from Krishna. Their attention is to please Krishna. Their attention is to serve Krishna. Their attention is to think about Krishna. And there is no other interest. So for those people, and here Prabhupada is translating these two words very significantly and very beautifully. Pariyupasate, Prabhupada is not just saying worship, but he's saying properly worship. That's another very important point to note. Pariyupasate, properly worship. And abhiyuktana, fixed in devotion. Not just doing devotion, but fixed in devotion, and nitya, always fixed in devotion. So the worship, so Prabhupada translates, but those who worship me with devotion. So just worship. So most people in this world do not even know what they should worship. They do not even know if there is some object that is to be worshipped. There is no idea of that worship is actually required. Because everyone is thinking, I'm so significant, I'm so important. Where is the necessity of worshipping anything or anyone? But then there are some people, because we live in a material world, we are naturally driven by someone who is famous, who is rich, who is more beautiful, and we sometimes worship them. And someone who has got a little more pious understanding, they may worship some demigods. But to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead is itself a rarity. To recognize the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And to recognize that Lord Krishna is the root of all material existence. Everything, the phenomenal world that we see, all the living entities that we see, there is a controller behind this. There is a source behind all these things. He is the Sarva Karana Karana. He is the cause of everything. So every cause, the root cause is the Lord Himself. Every energy that we in the phenomenal world we see is a manifestation of His energy. And He is the supreme controller. He is the supreme proprietor. He is the most well-wishing friend. So it is very hard for even people to recognize that there is someone, a personality like this who is supreme, who is the source of everything. So sometimes some people may recognize, yes, there is Krishna who is supreme. And they may want to worship. But then to worship with devotion is even more harder. There may be some more category of people who may recognize, yes, Bhagavan ko chante hain. My mother taught me to worship Krishna. I heard from her. I heard from my family members. I heard from the series Mahabharata. I appreciate the Lord and I worship the Lord in my way. But to worship the Lord with actual devotion, that is another level. And to worship constantly with devotion, that's even more higher. So how do we develop proper worship? This is very important. Because without proper worship, we do not develop devotion. There are sometimes people who say, yes, we are devotees of Krishna. And they live their life in a certain way, thinking that they are all devotees. But again, there is a categorical difference between the different devotees. Just like a student going to kindergarten can also say, I'm a student. Similarly, a student who is studying PhD can also say, I'm a student. But there's a huge difference between both the students. Similarly, one may say oneself to be a devotee, but to learn the art of devotion, to render service with love, that is another kind of devotion, another kind of devotee. So here, proper worship. How do we learn to do proper worship? So it is for this reason the Acharyas have given so many literatures for us to read and understand. Without understanding the literatures given by Rupa Raghunatha, it is not possible to develop or understand the transcendental pastimes, loving pastimes of Radha and Krishna. It is difficult or near impossible to actually learn the proper worship. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada's books are so important because they're helping a neophyte devotee to advance devotee, to make a neophyte devotee an advanced devotee, to a non-devotee, a neophyte devotee, and from there neophyte devotee, an advanced devotee, who can properly worship. So, Anyabhilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. So, Anyabhilashita Shunyam. So, no other desire except to please the Lord. So, when one begins devotional service, one begins with various other motives. Someone worships the Lord so that his family members are happy. Someone worships the Lord so that maybe he can become very peaceful. Or someone will worship the Lord because one is distressed, one is in want of something. But the motive is not here to completely please the Lord. So there are different motives with which one comes to render service to the Lord. And those are very pious. But more than that, to move to the next level where there is unalloyed, unmotivated devotional service. The motivation is only to please the Lord. And for that reason, one needs the instructions of the spiritual master. The spiritual master gives the regulative principles of practicing devotional life. By practicing those regulative principles of spiritual life, one's motivation becomes changed. From self-centered motivation to certain personal ambitions to eventually come to the point where the only goal of rendering devotional service is to please the Lord. So this will not take place unless one doesn't take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and follow his instructions. And therefore, in the Vedic scriptures, especially in Bhagavatam, the one common factor that how does one develop this devotional service? The way one receives devotional service, the faith in devotional service, is only by the association of pure devotees. Pure devotees association is so important because they are the source of giving that seed of pure devotion. That's why dust of the lotus feet of a pure devotee is so important. Even today, when we see sometimes in India, when people walk in Vrindavan, some saintly people, immediately after they walk, some people they take the dust and they put on their head. Well, this is one way. Even more important is actually to fully follow the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master. And also the dust is very powerful, yes, no doubt about it. So when one receives that dust, the blessings, the mercy of the pure devotee of the Lord, one's worship becomes proper. Otherwise, one is doing service, but one is not doing proper worship. And by following these regulative principles that is given by the spiritual master, one comes to the state of Nitya Abhiyuktana. So what is the parameter for devotees? So once we become devotees, we start taking to devotional service, and the question comes, am I becoming fixed in devotion? Is my mind chasing after different things, or is it fixed in rendering service to the Lord, in pleasing to the Lord? And am I doing that constantly, always? So that is the test. So when one is rendering service with pure motive, proper worship, with pure attention, undiverted attention, then Yogakshemam Vahamiham. Then immediately Lord will take care of all the necessities. There is no need to worry about one's struggle for existence. If one is not surrendered to the Lord. In fact, in the very beginning of teachings of Lord Chaitanya, in the very beginning, in the preface, Prabhupada writes, begins with saying how the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are non-different from Krishna, because the teachings of Lord Chaitanya are nothing but a practical demonstration of the teachings of Lord Krishna. Then Prabhupada immediately writes there that the ultimate instruction in Bhagavad Gita is to surrender unto Krishna, and the Lord promises that He takes immediate charge of such a surrendered soul. Then Prabhupada further expands that by saying the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is already in charge of the maintenance of this creation by virtue of His plenary expansion, Shirogakshayi Vishnu. But this maintenance is not direct. So it is said, actually the Lord is the maintainer and protector of every living entity. It is the Lord who is providing food to the elephant in the forest, to the ant in a small place, to all the living entities. But that is by virtue of His plenary expansion, He is taking care of everyone. But to a surrendered soul, He personally, so Prabhupada writes, however, when the Lord says that He takes charge of His pure devotee, He actually takes direct charge. He actually personally protects, He personally takes care of all the necessities of the devotee. This is a loving relationship. The Lord is so loving, so caring, that He wants to make sure this devotee is never troubled. And that's why Prabhupada writes in one place that the devotees of the Lord are never defeated, because the Lord is personally protecting. So this here Prabhupada is writing, the Lord takes charge of His pure devotee. So when we see that why am I not being protected, as what Lord is saying, we must recognize that our surrender is not complete. To the degree one is surrendering, to that degree the Lord is reciprocating. If we increase our surrender, then we will also see increased reciprocation of the Lord. He is taking care, we will see reciprocally how He is taking care personally. In fact, when Srila Prabhupada was coming from India to Boston, to New York, he had 2 heart attacks. And he felt if the weather in the sea, in the Atlantic Ocean, would not be good, he would not have survived. But then he also recollects that he sees as if Krishna is rowing the boat and calming that ocean. So it's a lot of personal protection. Without that, pure devotees can see that Lord is actually taking care, the Lord is actually protecting. So does Lord also protects us in various ways, even for little devotional service that we do. Lord is very, very merciful. Sometimes we fail to see it because of the various coverings that we have and the various conditioning we have. We assign a material cost to the Lord's protection. And therefore we fail to see, oh, Lord has protected me. Just the simple fact that to live a devotional life in Kali Yuga is so difficult. To follow 4 regulative principles is very difficult. To chant 16 rounds every day without fail is difficult. With so much noise going all over the world, for someone to remain aloof from all of them also needs Lord's protection. And that is happening for the devotee's life. Anyone who is chanting, they are being protected in so many ways that they are able to continue chanting. That is very special protection of the words of the pure devotee of the Lord, because the pure devotee of the Lord said, if you chant 16 rounds, you will attain all perfection. That means the Lord is also making sure that I will give extra protection because you're following the words of my devotee. So that's why as soon as we follow the instructions of the pure devotee, there is a natural protection that comes along with it. One doesn't have to worry about anything else. So as we often worry so much about the necessities that we need and so on and so forth, at the same time, we must introspect and see, am I surrendered enough? In another place, when someone asked Prabhupada, what is the meaning of humility? Prabhupada says, humility means to have complete faith in the protection and mercy of the Lord. Not having any faith in any other mercy, any other protection. Complete faith in the mercy of the Lord. In fact, we will see some examples where this is demonstrated and how Lord actually takes care in those circumstances, and devotees are actually fully having faith in Lord's mercy alone. So, ye yathamam prapatyante tam tadeva bhajamiham. So, it is only because of lack of surrender from our side that we do not see this complete reciprocation of the Lord. So, let us look at some examples where Lord's protection is seen very evidently. And there are various examples of this, in fact, innumerable examples of this. We'll try to take a couple of them and see what those examples are trying to say. So the first example that I'm going to take is that of Narada Muni and Mrigati. So Narada Muni, when he went to Vaikuntha to see the Lord, Vishnu, and then after that he started traveling again. And in his travel, he came to Prayag, the confluence of rivers Yamuna, Ganga, and Saraswati. And he took bath, and then he was traveling. When he was traveling, he saw the forest, and as he entered the forest, he saw a beautiful deer which was pierced by an arrow. And it was, his legs was pierced by the arrow, and it was still twisting in pain. Then he went further down, he saw another rabbit which is also pierced by an arrow and is half killed. And then, he sees a boar, and then he sees a rabbit. In this way, he sees various animals which are half killed. And then he goes a little further, and then he sees there is a hunter behind the tree who's aiming to kill more animals. So when Narada Muni went there and he tried to stop this hunter Mrigari from doing this sinful act, so Narada Muni explains to him that how this killing of animals, especially half killing the animals, is such a sinful act, and because of giving so much pain to the animals, even the Mrigari, the hunter, had to go similar kind and even more higher painful conditions. And when Narada Muni said this, he said, what else can I do? This is what I learned from my father. Then Narada Muni says, no, whatever you say, you have to suffer the consequences of your activities. So you better give it up. Then when Narada Muni further explains why this is so important, the Mrigari leaves the bow and arrow, and then he falls flat at Narada Muni and surrenders to him. So when he surrenders, he has one doubt. So his doubt is that if I break my bow, how shall I maintain myself? That is our natural concern. As soon as we hear that, okay, surrender to the Lord, do devotional service, the immediate question would be, how would I maintain myself? And immediately Narada Muni replied, do not worry, I shall supply all your food every day. So this is what Narada Muni immediately said to him, that I will provide the food every day. So he was very relieved. He felt very nice that at least Narada Muni is assuring him that he will take care of him. So he again goes down to Narada Muni and then he asks, please instruct me, what should I do so that I will be liberated from my sinful reactions? So immediately then Narada Muni first says that whatever riches you have, you should give to those devotees who know the absolute truth. So he goes and gives that to all the Brahmanas who know the absolute truth. Then he says you should create a small cottage next to the river. You should leave your home and go to the river and build a small cottage. And there you should grow a tulsi plant on a raised platform. And he says that you should daily circumambulate the tulsi plant, offer water, and chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So then Narada Muni says, every day I shall send sufficient food to you both. You can take as much food as you want. So actually, when they were following the instructions of Narada Muni, the people nearby places, they used to come and bring food. Now there are only two people, husband and wife, who are in the cottage, who are circumambulating the tulsi and chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But when the food was brought, it was like for 10 to 20 people. That's so much food. The news spread, and all the people from the nearby villages came to know there is a great Vaishnava here. And they would just come and bring so much food. Though they were bringing food for 10 to 20 people, the hunter and his wife would accept only food as much as they need. They would not take more. And after this, the conversation goes to the Parvata Muni, who also comes there. Narada Muni brings him to see the transformation in the hunter. But in this regard, the hunter says that to the people who are bringing food, please do not send so much grain. Only send what is sufficient for 2 people and no more. So this is the faith in the Lord. In the Bhagavad, Prabhupada writes something very interesting. The former hunter only wanted enough for 2 people to eat, no more. It is not necessary for a Vaishnava to keep a stock of food for the next day. He should receive only sufficient grain to last 1 day. The next day, he must again depend on the Lord's mercy. So a devotee is so much assured. He has absolute assurance from the Lord, from the shloka, and he recognizes that, oh, I don't have to worry about tomorrow. In fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally demonstrates this when his assistant, Govinda, sometimes used to keep a stock of Haritaki, Mayrobalan. So he used to keep the stock for the next day. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would say, why did you keep a stock for the next day? He would become very angry. Similarly, the Goswamis, they would go every day and beg as much as necessary for the sustenance for that day. And they would never keep anything for the next day. Prabhupada writes here, we should not materially calculate, thinking it's better to stock food for a week. Why give the Lord trouble by having him bring food daily? One should be, so sometimes people may think, oh, why should I bring food to the Lord every day? Why should I offer? I'll just make once for a week and keep it. No, one should be convinced that the Lord will provide daily. There is no need to stock food for the next day. Similarly, Prabhupada, whenever he received Lakshmi, whenever people gave donations, he would immediately engage in the service of the Lord. He would not be worried what will happen tomorrow. He would immediately say, okay, print books, build temples, immediately. So, because there is complete faith that the Lord is the protector, is the provider. And as long as I'm rendering service unto him, I will get all that is necessary. I don't have to worry about my tomorrow. And actually, Lord takes care personally. There is another this beautiful example of Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was born in a Mohammedan family. And because he was born in a Mohammedan family, he was not allowed to go and enter into the Jagannath Puri temple. Therefore, although Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can personally could have taken him to inside the temple, but rather he did not want to disturb the custom at that point of time. And he said Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Haridas Thakur to see the chakra which is on the top of the temple, and he said you should just see that and offer your obeisances, namaskara, and that is as good as saying as DT. So Lord gave him an instruction and he asked him to chant. And Lord then says, you do not worry, I will personally come and give you the remnants, the prasada of the Lord Jagannath. So as soon as one follows the instruction of the Lord, and Mahaprabhu in fact says, you don't have to go anywhere, don't have to even leave your residence, you just be here, I will get you the Mahaprasada of Lord Jagannath. So in this connection, Prabhupada also mentions another point that one should not imitate. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given various instructions to various devotees according to time, place, and circumstances. He gave instruction to Lord Nityananda Prabhu to go to Bengal and preach. He gave instruction to Rupa Sanatana to go to Vrindavan and excavate the places of Krishna's pastime and write books. And similarly, he instructed Haridas Thakur to chant in one place and offer his obeisances to the chakra. So Lord has given specific instructions to certain, here his associates. In the same way, Prabhupada says that one should not imitate others. One should receive the instructions from the Lord or his bona fide representative and follow those instructions. And if one follows those instructions, rather one can think, oh, maybe I should also write books like Rupa and Sanatana. Or maybe I should also go out to Bengal and preach like Nityananda, complete protection. Otherwise, we are doing not pariyupasate, not proper worship. And then we will not see the complete protection of the Lord. And the last example that I would like to share is that of Arjunacharya, the famous example that is related to this verse. So Arjunacharya, great devotee, when he was writing commentary on this verse, he wondered, how can Lord personally come and carry what we are missing, the necessities of the devotee? How can that be possible? Maybe his agents may come. Maybe his energies may come and manifest something. But how can Lord personally come? So he thought maybe there is some mistake here, not Aham, not him. It's not personally, he's not doing this. And he was not sure, how can Lord do this? And then he strikes that and he goes to, in fact, his wife sees that there is no vegetables and he gets disturbed by this and he calls out his wife and says, I'm not able to comprehend that Lord is saying, he will personally deliver, he will personally come and protect and carry whatever is missing. And then his wife also then doesn't understand what to do. And then at the point of time, they see that there's nothing in the house to cook. Then she asks if she can bring something. Then in the meantime, Arjunacharya goes outside. In fact, he goes to a temple and he was looking if he can bring something back to the home. But in the meantime, two boys come and bring the necessities for the various vegetables, grains that are necessary. They bring and they give to Arjunacharya's wife. And Arjunacharya's wife was so surprised. Why did these two beautiful boys are carrying such heavy weight? And she asked, who told you to do this? And they immediately say, your husband gave us this to carry and put it here. And they also show that he has actually beaten them. And she was very surprised. Oh, my husband is not so harsh. How can he do this? And they said, no, he has done this. And they gave all the vegetables and groceries necessary for the cooking. And then they say, okay, we'll be playing outside and we'll come when you finish cooking. So, in fact, the wife says, be here, I'll cook and give you, offer some prasad. They say, no, we will play outside and we'll come later. And actually, when she asks, what is your name? They say Ram and Shyam. And then they go away. And when the wife cooks from the groceries that was given by these two boys, and husband comes, Arjunacharya, and is surprised. How did you make all these things? And she says, you only sent with those two boys, and how can you be so harsh with them? You were troubling them. You gave so much heavy weight to them to carry, and you even wet with on their backs. How can you do that? And then he was surprised. And why are they accusing me of these things? I never did anything like this. How come there are marks on them? I never did anything to any children. Neither I gave them anything to carry. Then he eventually asked, what is the name? Who are those boys? How do they look? Then she describes the cloth, the color, and the name, Ram and Shyam. Then Arjunacharya immediately recognizes, oh, this is Krishna Balaram themselves coming here and personally delivering what is lacking. And they were so surprised. They were so, it immediately struck to them that I struck off that things and that appeared as the marks in the Lord's back. And actually, Lord's statement is actually true. He personally comes and delivers what is missing. So this is actually true. The devotee does not have to worry about any necessities. Only thing is to surrender and do service to please the Lord. And sometimes it is very difficult for a common man to understand, oh, where is the Lord? How can I see him? How can I see the Lord? Okay, if Lord is there, how do I see him? The Lord is very merciful. In this verse also we say, Prabhupada translates by saying, meditating on my transcendental form. So meditating on my transcendental form. So when we think, oh, how do I meditate on the transcendental form of the Lord? Very difficult. So Lord is very merciful. He appears in the Archa Vigraha form. He appears so that we can see with our material eyes. Prabhupada gives a wonderful example of post box. Prabhupada says, just like there is post office, the post box is exactly doing the same function. Just like if you put in a post box, the letter will go from one place to another place. Similarly, you go to the post office, you give the letter, it will go from one place to another place where it is supposed to go. So in terms of the function, the post box is doing the same as the post office. Because the post box, although it's not looking like a post office, but it is authorized by the post office. Similarly, the Lord, who is Akhilatma Bhuto, who is in the Goloka, Navasati Akhilatma Bhuto, although he is in Goloka, he personally manifests himself through the Archa Vigraha form, so that he gives opportunity for devotees to meditate on his transcendental form, to help them learn how to worship the Lord. So, Lord is very, very merciful that he appears in Archa Vigraha form for us to, he makes himself accessible to us. And it is said that the spiritual potencies of the Lord in the spiritual world and the Lord in the deity are non-different. Just like the post box and the post office are doing the same function. Similarly, the Lord in the spiritual world and the Lord in the deity incarnation, the Archa incarnation, are same. Similarly, Lord in the Kali Yuga, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made it even more simpler. Oh, you may be having difficulty to worship the Lord in Archa Vigraha form. You chant, you access me always. Simply chanting, which is so easy, which can be done anytime. The worship process has been made even more simpler for us. So if you all take shelter of chanting the holy name of the Lord with attention and Pariyupasade, proper worship as recommended by Srila Prabhupada, how we should be respectful while chanting, how we should be attentive while chanting, and how we should constantly chant. So if you follow the instructions as given by Srila Prabhupada, is how to chant, and how if you develop our faith and surrender to the holy name and render service under the guidance of bona fide spiritual master, then you will see more and more Yogakshemam Mahamiham. In fact, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very, very much. Even little devotional service, Mahaprabhu reciprocates so much. So this is very assuring, very, very assuring that Lord, we don't have to worry about anything. All that little he's asking is worshipping with little devotion. If we learn how to become devoted, as we will see in coming verses, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, just give me leaf, a flower, little water, the fruit, little bit, but with devotion. So that devotion is what we have to learn. That is the crux. And to learn devotion means to follow the devotional service cannot be whimsical. Whimsical devotional service does not lead to the progressive stages of devotion. One gets stuck in a certain level of devotion. To advance in devotional life, to come out of the clutches of material influence, we need to follow the bona fide spiritual master. And for that, it is very important we don't concoct devotional service. Concoction in devotional service can be a big hindrance. Certain material advancement, certain material results are not the criteria of devotion. Devotion means purification, more and more interest in hearing, chanting. Prabhupada is saying, one who is unable to live for a moment without Krishna consciousness cannot but think of Krishna 24 hours. Being engaged in devotional service by hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshipping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, rendering other services, cultivating friendship, and surrendering fully to the Lord. Such activities are all auspicious. Unable to live for a moment without Krishna consciousness. So we have to learn the art of becoming Krishna conscious. While we understand the process, it is not sufficient that unless we don't apply the process properly, we may not become Krishna conscious. We may perform the act without being Krishna conscious. We may do service without being Krishna conscious. So from that stage of doing something without being Krishna conscious, we have to come to the stage we are doing for Krishna, remembering Krishna. So, and that should eventually end to a stage where Nitya Viptanam, fixed in devotion. That is all auspicious Prabhupada writes. And that is full of spiritual potencies. As soon as we come under the influence of spiritual potencies, the material influence will not act upon us. We will not be agitated by the temporary material things. We will be assured in the protection of the Lord. Then Prabhupada writes, what happens to one who is under such a state of spiritual potency, who's performing activities which are all auspicious and is under the influence of full of spiritual potencies? Then he says that makes the devotee perfect in self-realization. What is that perfection in self-realization? Perfection in self-realization means to recognize I am a servant of the Lord and I must constantly engage in the service of the Lord. Always. And Prabhupada expands that by saying, and his only desire is to achieve the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only desire, no other desire. How do I be in the association of the Lord always? How can I do some service to the Lord always? There is no other desire. Otherwise, we have so many desires, we have so many worries. We get carried away by people around us, by so many circumstances. And when we are in such state of where we are only seeking association with the Lord, and then the mercy of the Lord flows completely. Mercy means full protection. Full protection means one goes back to the spiritual world. No more suffering, even in the material existence, and after one quits this body, goes back to the spiritual world. And Lord also protects him from falling down to the miserable conditioned lives. So without the protection of the Lord, the tiny living entity cannot remain in absolutely spiritual platform. The bala, the energy that is required to remain in absolute spiritual platform, it also comes from the Lord. So there is a lot of work that we all need to do so as to become recipient of complete protection of the Lord, complete mercy of the Lord. And that should be our objective of how do we deepen, strengthen our practice and become Krishna conscious and come to a stage where we cannot live for a moment without Krishna consciousness. I'll stop here and see if there are any questions.